It is time for Best Bets. AFL 2024 Flaggers! Woo! Actually, I can't.
How are you $8?
I actually hate the fact that it's only $8. It's ridiculous.
I don't mind that.
So digging into the 2024 AFL odds, I actually hate that Carlton is $8 and so are GWS. Like, there's not enough value.
Probably not.
Like, 6 months out from the start of the season to actually sort of go, oh, well, you should definitely get on them now, because at $8, you're like, well, if they lose round one, it'll be 11. It'll be 12. All the
Carlton fans bet on them already.
But GWS were probably my sneaky, like I went into that market looking for GWS odds, and for them to only be 8, I'm kind of like, I don't.
Their draw's going to be a lot harder this year too, or next year.
Yeah.
Yep. So Adelaide at 17 was a little bit more interesting because there's actually plenty of value in that. And Adelaide, when they're up and about, you had that moment of like
should have been in the finals.
Should have been in the finals. Old dudes, though, you sort of do worry about like a little bit of the drop off at the top end of some of their bigger name stars. But they were so good in the young gun department that you're like, well, maybe. But really, the one that I ended up landing on is probably Port. Like at $10, you sort of saw this year. I mean, any team that can rip off 13 wins and like defy expectations, etc. They've just got really good balance. You feel like maybe heading into next year, for a team that basically threatened to finish top of the ladder for a big chunk of this season, to be $10 heading into next year, I kind of love it. So I think that's where I land. The fact that the Pies are at $6 and Brisbane are actually favourites is pretty funny, but makes a little bit of sense, I guess, if you think that the Pies, just a little bit of an older team versus Brisbane. And Brisbane, I mean, it's just hard to sort of go against them considering
Will
that Gabba record.
Coming back in too.
Yep. So I think Port's probably my best value pick out of all those. How do you guys feel about those?
I really like. Oh, you go, Alex.
I've started to write. Obviously, I'm going to do just the quick look for 2024 where we look at all teams. And I looked at Port Adelaide. They are chips in to win a flag in the next 2 years, but they're bringing in Zerk Thatcher, Brandon Zerk Thatcher, that is, who lost more one-on-one contests than any key defender in the AFL last year. And Radigalea, who wasn't in Geelong's best 22, even though they were losing a lot of games when they were
I like
Zerk
Thatcher, though.
Yeah, but it's just like, that's not great if you're trying to add to your defensive stocks. It's more for Adelaide, can Tex Walker kick 80 goals again? You're like, I don't know. Can Thrillthorpe and Fogarty kick the 35 between them? It's just like, it's Brisbane. It's Brisbane. You land on Brisbane because it's like, for Collingwood, if they can get a key target up forward, it's probably them again. It's like, Carlton, addition by subtraction with Paddy Dow, maybe another midfielder to go. Like they got to let all the cooks in the kitchen actually cook, not have too many people.
Yeah. I'm leaning towards Melbourne. Melbourne at $7. I reckon.
They need a key forward. They
need a forward. But if one of those guys, those random guys that have shown in the past that they can kick goals, have a decent season last year, that's the only thing they're missing. They literally should have beaten Collingwood. I know you can say should have, and then they didn't. But the last 2 seasons, they went out in straight sets. It's sort of like Brisbane a couple of years ago went out in straight sets and then sort of took that next step. So that's what I'm leaning towards Melbourne. I think Melbourne's actual list overall is the best.
They just behind don't Brisbane. Have a forward line. That's the problem. I would be throwing everything I could at Oscar Allen going, hi, West Coast, here's like 1,000 draft.
It's not a bad shout. They won't want to get rid of him, though.
I know, but it's just like, hi, can we? No, okay, we are.
I think, but looking at these ones, I feel like you're talking about like balance at both ends of the ground. It's like basically for me, it's Brisbane and Port next year that just have that sort of like leaving season 2023, like they look the most solid on both ends, I think, and in the midfield, of course. Like Brisbane, Port, $5.50, $10. I like that a lot. Right, NBA look aheads though as well. We had, as mentioned at the top of the show, Jrue Holiday traded to the Boston Celtics.
Huge.
Stats guy beside himself. It actually makes them favourite again. It's an interesting setup because they keep Derek White. They only ship out big Time Lord Robert Williams,
I think that's going to hurt us.
2 first round picks.
Yeah.
Well, you do have the extreme zinger meal, and you've still got Al Horford, but Time Lord was at least your sort of, well, if we do need a bit of defensive versatility, we've got Time Lord. But now you got Jrue Holiday, who just gives you that extra ball handling sort of thing.
He's awesome,
I don't know. Derek White was probably just fine. So it's a weird one for me. But they are $4.50 after the Jrue trade, and so are Milwaukee after the Dame Lillard for Jrue trade last week.
Crazy.
The thing that sticks out to me, though, Stats Guy, the Denver Nuggets, who absolutely blasted everybody.
Yeah.
On the way to winning the flag.
Yeah.
Well, the title. We're $7. What are we doing? 7.
I'm literally
That's insane.
talking that
I'm
bad as
all
well.
over Denver.
Absolutely.
Let's go. So, all right. So take us their way then, Stats Guy, with your pick.
Yeah, I think the odds of they're way too short to take on Boston and Milwaukee when the unknown's still there. I think $4.50 just doesn't seem to be the value when you got Denver, as you just mentioned, at $7. I know you're not the biggest fan of them, but I think the Suns are worth taking on at $7 as well. I think anyone around that sort of mark, that $7, because then you drop off to Warriors, Lakers, 76ers. I don't trust any of them to go take that next step. Whereas you got Boston and Milwaukee obviously have to play each other most likely in the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't think it's worth taking on the $4.50. I am worried about my Celtics. I think Porzingis, he hasn't had a full season, doesn't like playing full seasons. If he drops off and we don't have Time Lord to come off the bench for him or even just start with him, I'm very, very worried that we got rid of Robert Williams. I can understand Brogdon because you obviously got Drew Holiday, Derek White, who can play that defensive guard sort of role. But I am worried about, no Time Lord and things like that. So I'm going to lean towards the Nuggets as well because $7 for a team that was just smashing everyone. You got Jokic still absolutely tearing it up. Jamal Murray. So, yeah, go on them at $7.
They lose a little bit of depth, I think, during the offseason, but at the same time, like, it's fine. Let's go the Nugs. The thing with the Celtics, they could just be like absolutely terrifying defensively. So
that's what I'm hoping for. I'm not surprised that they're favourites or close to favourites on most markets, but it'd just be interesting. I think it's too short, $4.50.
Yep. All right, Alex. Best
Gerald,
bets.
hit the bit. He's going to win the Brownlow next year. $15. Just take it now. He's not going to punch someone in the face. He's fine. I've never seen it. Whereas if it was Chunley, I'd be like, he might punch someone. I could see that happening. But just the way that he finished off last season, it is impossible to see him going backwards in his form. It's also impossible to see Nick Dacos going backwards. So maybe have something on him at $7. But in a 7-game stretch late in the season, Errol ripped off 5 best on ground performances and a 2 and a 1 voter thrown in there for 18 votes in 7 games to nearly snatch the Brownlow out of nowhere. He's $15. If he comes back in the first few games and goes bang, bang once again, sort of like how he finished the year, he'll be into single figures very quickly.
Yeah.
I agree with that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So that's an early one. But what I'm really going to talk about is the Champions League winners. Man City are favourites? Nah, they're not looking great at the moment. Let's be real, Stats Guy. They got rolled by Wolves.
I know. What the hell?
Everything doesn't seem rosy at Manchester at the they Anyway, Bayern Munich, $5.50, perennial winners.
This is the same guy who literally on Friday says,
they're
so boring.
Yeah.
All they do is win.
Yeah.
They win in the most boring fashion ever.
It
There's
was
nothing going
honestly
on there.
a really boring game. I watched it. I sat down
To
and
be
watched
fair,
it.
they're going to have 1 or 2 of those bad games in the season.
Yeah.
They've still they were undefeated before that, so they're still flying.
Yeah, but I'm just like, But
I'm happy to take them on in the Champions League.
It's the treble hangover that I'm going with as well. It's like where's the drive for everyone else?
It's also Alex just wants to pick Arsenal. That's what he's going for. So
well, I'm tipping Bayern Munich first at $5.50 to win it because they're perennial winners. And for Arsenal, I believe, because I don't think we can win the title, whereas if we go chips in on the Champions League, probably better off going there because that's only, 1 game, not a sort of whole holistic 38 games to look at it, whereas Arsenal are going to top their group. They're going to get ideally an easy round of 16 in a quarter final.
I feel like they might get ahead of themselves with that easy round of 16. That's the only thing I'm worried about. But because then they'll have to come up against one of the best teams in the world and go, maybe they're not that good.
But if you cop like a Dortmund or a PSG in like the quarterfinals, you're like, oh yeah, that's fine. Like they usually choke here. Or it's the old win at home and you get through. Like as we've seen, that their squad is more than good enough to win a lot of games. And obviously the key one's going to come this weekend against City. But I think at $8.50, $9, backing Bayern and Arsenal to win the Champions League is the way to go because Real Madrid, outside of like their main crux of the squad, their depth isn't great. And apparently there's people coming in January wanting to buy players here and there. So I'm not really sold on them. It's just be like, oh yeah, Harry Kane will score 100 goals for Bayern and they'll probably win it.
Nice one.
Imagine what you could be buying instead. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.